New vampire support is finally getting leaked as of the newest update to Master Duels. The new leaks show that we're going to be getting the zombie vampire at some point in time, which is a new vampire card. Now, it's the only vampire card that's been like shown in the files. There's also this nice little interesting statement over here. The whole keep an eye out for dragons and Fallen of Albaz fusions, as well as don't forget the brand new support for pre-existing archetypes like Rocket, Odd Eyes, Sword Soul, Ghost Trick, and Vampire. Now, honestly, like, this could be the only card that they add, but very likely not, because this is less vampire support than it is just like general rank 8 support at this point. Considering the fact that we are expecting support for vampires, there's a good chance that we're also going to get Vampire Ghost as well, and Vampire Fascinator, which is the remaining 2 vampire support cards specifically that we don't have out as well. And those are going to be huge, especially Vampire Ghost, for like the way the deck functions. So this is kind of like the deck list that I've been kind of messing around with just now over like the past few hours. I'm still kind of messing around with ratios of like the amount of like vampire names to the amount of like text. You really don't have any 1-card combos here, but you have some really good 2-card combos. As long as you have like Ghost and any other vampire name, you're already popping off. And if you have a tuner, if you have like Unizombie especially, but in certain situations, even just like a hand trap tuner can give you like insane Haki Fibrex into like Boral Savage and Barone plays alongside your Beatrice into Zombie World and Ball of Dark plays. But I'm liking this list mostly. I do feel like I wish I could bump up the vampire name count to something like around 20. Like maybe, I think this is probably going to be like the way. Like at least one more desire just so we have that extra vampire name. I've tried like Foolish Burial. I've tried 1 for 1 and like they're nice as added text and also being able to let you extend beyond like getting your normal summon Ash, for example, which is like a huge bait for this deck. But like I also feel like it's hard. Like you have to either prioritize text for extending or text for like disrupting your opponent when they go first, and this deck can't really go second all too well against like a really oppressive board, so you just want to stop the board from being oppressive is kind of my thought. I feel like Forbidden Droplet is like nice in theory. You can make like really good 2-card combos, so maybe I'll mess around with it, but until we get like some legitimate bans, like, you know, not having Halkoradon, Denglong being like the big part of the meta, I think right now I'm just still going to be focusing a lot on like disrupting when going second, disrupting via hand trap. But I like, you know, Vampire Ghost is cracked and is amazing. Like any vampire name plus Vampire Ghost is just like combo. It's pretty hot. Like I'm actually pretty excited. This right here, this is the good stuff. Let's see. I could even just like, the thing to remember about Pot of Prosperity, if you do have full combo, Pot kind of like stops you from getting the sucker drop. So I'm just going to like demonstrate what that is. Activate, and then use so that we can send the familiar to the graveyard, and then let's just go ahead and add the grace. And since we already have familiar in the graveyard, we're just going to send the retainer. If we didn't have familiar, we would send that instead. So it's good to be able to discard it already and also get the bat, because that means we guarantee counter trap setup as well. So we send the grace to the graveyard to summon that familiar, so we could then go ahead and pay the 500 life points so we could add the Shadow Vampire from the deck to the hand. Now at this point, you don't have any more summons, but you just link off into Vampire Sucker. And now suddenly you have the effect of Vampire Ghost so that you can pay 500 life points, and then you could tribute a monster, or you could normal summon a vampire monster. So you tribute that Vampire Sucker, which is going to allow you to go ahead and summon the Shadow Vampire, allowing you to summon the Scourge from the deck, which is going to allow you to go ahead and special summon a vampire from the graveyard. Now since you summon a vampire from another zombie, or since you summon a zombie from another zombie, you can activate Grace's effect. So you want to activate Grace's effect first, and then you chain the effect of the Scourge, which is going to allow you to summon the Sucker. So this is resolved backwards. You summon the Sucker, and then you summon the Grace from the graveyard, and now suddenly you get yourself a draw off of the Grace. And look at that. Look at all this wombo. And then we go make Beatrice. Now since we drew, we can't activate Pot of Prosperity. If we had another vampire name, we'd send it from the hand to the graveyard, so we could then search the counter trap and then make IP with Shadow and Retainer. We could still technically do that. Like we could, let's say for example, get rid of the Sucker to then summon Retainer, search counter trap, and then in this like standby phase summon Ball or Rock to summon Grace. But then there's a window where you don't have the counter trap live because you won't have a vampire monster on the field. So I usually prefer to just leave the vampires on the field if I can. And having Sucker on the field also gives you draws next turn as well. So we just do this. We search with the Retainer the counter trap now, and now we have ourselves, we have cards. This is a hand. Let's see, how do we do this? So I think with when you have both Unizombie and Ghost, you're kind of like insanely chilling, as long as you have like another card to another vampire name alongside the ghost. So like in this situation, you go ahead use Zombie effect. So you could go mill. I would say in this situation you have to mill Retainer first because you need an extra summon to get Ghost in play. So you Retainer, send another vampire name to the graveyard, summon the Retainer. So you could go ahead and add the domain from the deck to the hand. And you go ahead, activate that domain, and then before doing anything else, you have to activate to pay 500 so that you could get that extra normal summon of a vampire. Now you could use that domain as the cost of the effect for the Vampire Ghost, and now you could go ahead and add from deck to the hand the Grace, while sending to your graveyard the Familiar. Now you could go ahead and use the effect of the Familiar to send that Grace, to special summon the Familiar, letting you go ahead and add from deck to the hand the Shadow Vampire. And then I like to go link off Familiar into Link Karibo, because that gives you a Link monster in the graveyard besides the Vampire Sucker, and that lets you equip it to Borreload Savage Dragon. You could do technically the same with Vampire Sucker, but I kind of like to keep it on the field because it nets you a lot of advantage. And then what I like to do afterwards is I like to link off that Link Karibo alongside that Zombie, so I could summon Hauki Firebrax from the deck, and then from Hauki Firebrax you summon a level 3 tuner. At this point you could thin the deck since you already did Zombie plays. You could just summon another Zombie and try to top deck into another hand trap afterwards. And then with the Retainer and with the Ghost, you go ahead and summon the Vampire Sucker so that you could get that Ghost into the graveyard, and that allows you to go ahead use the Ghost effect in the graveyard to get an additional normal summon of Vampire, tribute that Sucker, and you summon the Shadow Vampire, so you could then go ahead and summon from the deck the Vampire Scourge, and then you want to make sure you activate Grace's effect first to summon it from the graveyard, paying 2,000 life points. Your life points are insanely low after this, but you feel cool doing it, so it's worth trust. And then you chain the effect of the Scourge so that it resolves first to summon the Sucker. And that way, when Grace gets summoned, you get yourself a draw off of the Sucker. And now, we have a dead Pot of Prosperity because we can't draw the turn we use Pot of Prosperity, but yeah, you get the point. So then what I do here is, we do our typical rank 6 play to make Beatrice, and then we go ahead and detach. Which I choose to detach depends on whether I want to summon Ballardrock in the standby phase of the opponent's next turn by its own effect, or if I want to summon Ballardrock off of Glow Bloom at any point during the opponent's turn. Usually I prefer the latter, so I keep Grace attached so that it's less susceptible to like any kind of graveyard banishes, and detach Scourge first. So I could then go ahead and build a Necroworld Banshee. That's going to allow us to get Zombie World in the field, but I also want to keep that in the graveyard without activating it yet, just because if we could keep the Zombie World from being exposed to any threats until we summon Ballardrock, then we may as well. So now we have Necroworld Banshee, we have Sucker, we have Hauki Firebrax. What this allows us to do, we still have a level 5 and a level 3 tuner that lets us go into Borreload Savage, so we have ourselves another negate. And it doesn't seem like much to have just one negate, but the really nice thing about this is that usually the big problem with the standard Zombie World is after they make Hulk into Ballardrock combo, they usually like to go into Formless Synchro on the opponent's turn to then go into Baron. But the problem with that is the opponent always gets priority in the main phase to go ahead and activate it in effect in the main phase first, which could be make or break us being able to have an actual legitimate amount of disruption. So by being able to go negate their first action, the main phase, with Savage Dragon, you could then go ahead and make Baron off of that Savage Dragon, or use the Ballardrock that you summoned to do so while getting a draw off of Formula Synchron. It's really nice. You got a hand trap, you got a call by the grave, you're big chillin'. Now the opponent is a bot, so they're not going to be good, but it's fine. Cope. Let's see. It's a Pot of Duality. Ruh-roh. Oh no, not the Grand Maju. Pot of Desires. Alright, wrong hand trap, unfortunately. They're gonna, oh my god, that's a big boy. So this is the nice thing about situations where you can save the Beatrice. So let's say they're now going to the battle phase, right? They go to the battle phase, you activate the effect of the Beatrice, so that you could then go ahead and detach the Grace. That's gonna allow you to go ahead and send the Glow Bloom from the deck, and then you activate Glow Bloom and you chain the Banshee, so you can go ahead and place the Zombie World just before the Glow Bloom resolves, so you could successfully summon the Doom King from the deck, and then because you summon a zombie monster from another zombie monster, you could trigger the effect of the Grace, which is gonna then allow you to trigger the effect of the Ballardrock because the zombie effect is being activated, so that you could then, as a quick effect, banish any monster in the field or graveyards. So you banish that Grand Maju, and you have yourself a Grace, extra material, and you could have done the same thing by activating Hauki Firex's effect, because with Zombie World it counts as a zombie, but it's nice to have advantage. Alright, and we could have made Baron by using the effect of Hauki Firebrax to get Formula Synchron, use the Ballardrock, since we would have gotten it back in the next standby phase, and OTK is super easy, barely an inconvenience. Like, literally, just access code lines are so easy with this deck. You go into whatever link 3 you have. You go and link them off. You've already used your Beatrice, so you could just link that off. You don't have to activate the effect of Fascinator, but if you want, well, we can't right now, but if you could, you could. Or you could just link it off. And now, like, you always have OTK with just access code with 5300 attack alongside a 2800 attack Balderdrach, and you don't even need to end it there. You have cards like Desire, for example, that allow you to bring cards back. So you just go ahead and, like, start swarming the field as much as you want. We'll summon this, and then you're just like, actually, I want my Link 3 back. So you use the Desire, bring back the Fascinator, and then suddenly you can just get yourself another Link 4. And since we summoned from the graveyard, Sucker gives us another draw. Hooray! Look at all this unneeded advantage. And now Balderdrach is going to come back next turn. Hooray! This is kind of where I'm at, but you could also do something like this and just be a big old caca. Take out honestly, probably just take out the Sheridan and the Fascinator. It's a fun, cool card, but you don't necessarily need it. And then you could just play Destiny Hero, Phoenix Enforcer, etc. Like, you know, all of us meta shweebs. And then, unfortunately, like, adding those extra bricks isn't helping the deck in that way. You could opt to go over 40 cards. That could also be kind of shaky, though, I feel like, just because you really want to see multiple names. If you just have one vampire name, then you're not really doing anything with the vampire cards. But it could be worth going over 40 cards just so you don't see your bricks as often, while still playing a lot of vampire names so that you could do whatever you gotta do. Like, let's say if we play this, for example. This is, I think, full combo with counter trap. So let's see how this work out. So we go into normal summon the familiar, so we could go special summon the Link Karibo, getting the familiar into the graveyard, so we could go send the retainer to the graveyard, so we could special summon familiar, allow us to go ahead and add the ghost from the deck to the hand. I think we don't even need the ghost. We could just go add Shadow Vampire, but let's just extend as much as we possibly can, because if we ain't extending, I don't know what you're doing with your life. So we're going to get rid of the Grace now, so we could go ahead and summon that Vampire Retainer, allowing you to search for the domain. Here we're happy that we have the counter trap already, so we're going to go ahead and activate, getting that additional summon, so that we could now get our second summon of the turn, allowing us to go use the Ghost effect to send that domain. So we can go ahead and add the Shadow Vampire, and we already got a Retainer Familiar effect, so we just mill for the follow-up. Usually you're already gassed out of monsters when you do full combo turn 1, so usually I just go with Retainer Mill so we could get a Desire, so we could get some potential follow-up plays there. Then we go into our Sucker. Ghost link off is mandatory here, so we're gonna go ahead and summon the Sucker so we can then get our third normal summon. Yeah, Flunderies, you thought you normal summoned a lot. Well, you do, okay? It's honestly bothers me. So, tribute over to Sucker to summon the Shadow, to special summon from the deck the Scourge, and then you go ahead and use the Grace effect first, special summon itself, and then chain the effect of Scourge to special summon the Sucker from the deck, and then you're going to go ahead, or from the graveyard, so you can then go ahead and get yourself a draw, because we didn't Pot of Prosperity here, and then we're going to see what else we get. Wonderful. I love this engine. And then we go and make our Beatrice. We're not really locked into anything at this point, so it's honestly, you know, it doesn't like detract from anything playing Dippy besides like just the bricks. So you go ahead and send Banshee to the graveyard, and then at this point, you already have Sucker. You can make IP, so that's an option, or you can go ahead and make yourself Verte Anaconda. So like both options are here, like, and they're both like really strong. If you know you're going against a backer heavy deck, IP into Trisbania is actually pretty, like, it's legitimately cracked. But otherwise, Verte is pretty ridiculous. And then you just go ahead, you send your I win more card, and then suddenly you say goodbye hand. Hello. Now you have Dippy. Next turn you have Doom King Balderdrach. We could always just play one Fusion Destiny, and then take out a take out a pot. And then we could even like take out the Crossout Destinators, but even that's like kind of risky. Like being able to stop hand traps feels really valuable. If you're focusing on Verte, then you could take out the Glow Bloom and take out like the IP Trisbania package as well, and then that'll help like clear up some space as well. So this is like another way you could go, and then you could replace with like Nightmare Unicorn. You could bring back Fascinator. You could bring back Sheridan if you want.